Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, and welcome to the Shatter After's official podcast on HBO's The Last of Us, where we seek the art beyond the clickers. I am Brandon Alvarado, Monkey D. Bradley here, and I'm excited to be joined by Michael Thomas and Robert Taylor for the season 2-3 spoiler cast for the show. The season's over, season 2 is over. We're going to talk about season 2, but we're more importantly going to talk about season 3 and our hopefulies. And Robert, I'm excited to be here. Are you excited to be here?
This is what I've been waiting for all season. We can talk about spoilers now. I don't have to censor myself. So yes, I'm very excited to be here.
I don't know why. I have a feeling that when we least expect it, when Mike goes to edit this, you're going to start talking and he's going to bleep it out. Just.
I mean, look, I felt bad 2 episodes ago when I was like, I think they might end the season with Seattle day 1 again on Abby's side. And now, man, I was being pretty spoilery, wasn't I? Because that's exactly what they did.
That's what they did. I don't know why, but now I'm feeling evil corporation right now because I kind of want Mike to censor you and to put the uncensored version behind a Patreon wall, like just to piss everybody off.
You guys just pay us $5 and you can get the uncensored full length episode ad free on your local podcast.
After the $5, no.
Listen, you'll get access to the exclusive Namor Nation updates podcast.
Listen, here's why I need it. There's only one thing I
Nation.
Listen. There's only one thing I need to talk about for this episode. This is the only reason I wanted to do this episode, to talk about one thing.
Bring it.
How the fuck is this working as a TV show? How? I can't believe they decided to do it this way. I mean, for 2 years now, as we've been talking about The Last of Us Part 2 and how they're going to adapt it for the show, it's like, well, how are they going to do this? Are they going to be cutting back and forth between Ellie and Abby as they go through their day ones? Like, how are you going to manage this as a TV show? Because obviously you can't adapt it straight as a game, or we'll be killing one of our lead characters and then abandoning our other lead character for a bunch of episodes in a row, potentially a whole season. And guess what, guys? That's exactly what they're doing. So, I mean, claps for Mason for
the balls.
Yeah, just the balls to do it this way.
Yeah.
And I am just fascinated beyond belief.
Yeah.
To see if it's going to work with a general TV audience. This is so much to ask of people to be like, we are killing Joel. We are ending on this massive cliffhanger where Ellie's fate is left up in the air. And oh, by the way, you're going to be following a completely different lead character for the next how many episodes? Potentially a full season. Although, as we talked about in the previous episode, Bella Ramsey's making noise that there are going to be ways for them to potentially appear in season 3, at least in some sort of reduced role. I don't know how that works. But in the game, this is what I really want to get into. In the game...
Oh, you can say it now. In the game.
In the game, this works. Because as soon as we switch perspectives from Ellie and Abby, I'm still playing. 5 minutes later, I'm playing. 10 minutes later, I'm playing. The next day, I'm playing.
You mean Neil Druckmann didn't break into your house and take your controller for 2 years, Robert?
So it all works. Because, listen, it's a long game. If you're putting the time into it, if you're finding all those little notes.
What is it, 35, 40 hours?
I mean, it's like if you just breeze through, if you just blow through the story, I think it's at least 25. And if you're finding all the notes and, really...
It's 35 to 40.
A holiday weekend gets you through this game 100%.
It depends on how much time you sink into it. But are
you trying to talk about these viewership numbers, Mike? You're trying to bring that back up?
You can play it all in a week, and you can play it all in a week and see, oh my God, this is why they killed Joel. This is why they shifted the perspective. This is why they had us play as Abby for 10 hours or whatever it is. This is what they wanted us to make us feel, and this is how all of that's going to pay off at the end. And it's masterful. But for the show, they're going to tease that perspective shift and shut it down for potentially 2 years, which is fucking insane. And I kind of love it. And I'm kind of not going to be surprised if the TV audience at large is just like, what are we doing? What is happening? Like it's and
So-
HBO is already leaning into it. If you've seen like HBO's socials today, it's like pictures of Caitlin Deaver and like all eyes on her underneath it.
Yeah.
And it's like this is the new star of the show.
And this is why when we were reviewing this week by week, I was so concerned about the non-gamers perspective, right? Because think about it, you're going to have 3 seasons of television with 3 different leads and 3 different supporting casts. Every single, it's basically working as an anthology, but it's telling the same like overarching story, you know? And it's like, I don't know how do you sell this show? Because you had Pedro Pascal, you got rid of him. Now Bella Ramsey's the lead, but now Bella Ramsey's out the show. And now Caitlin Deaver's the lead. And it's tough. Like, I do not envy them at all. This is challenging. And every complaint that I have is like, how do you make this work? Because we know what this show needs to do and what it needs to accomplish. And I don't know how this is going to pay off come season 3. I will say the choices they made of like giving us more info on Abby's backstory and all that information earlier is in service to that, right? You already in the game, they go out of their way to make you not know anything about Abby. And when that switch happens, you then have to learn about Abby as you play as her, right? In the show, they almost have to basically plant those seeds of, well, she's not a terrible person. She has a reason for what she did, just so when that show comes back, the viewer's like, well, I don't hate her. So I'll still check it out. Whereas in the game, you flat out hated her, and then they did the perspective shift.
I will say, and I'm sorry, Brendan, I guess we have to let you speak at some point since you're our host, right? But
I get bounced out all the time. You can go.
But I now understand, seeing what they did and they did it this way, I completely understand why they let us know who Abby is earlier in the game, why she hates Joel, why she wants to kill him.
Yeah.
Sort of like all that, because, you know, we don't learn that information until after the cut, you know, after the showdown between Abby and Ellie in the theater in that final episode. And when it cuts, that's when we get that information in the game. You could not have saved that stuff till next season. I mean, you had got to at least tip off why this confrontation is happening and why Joel had to die. So I think all the correct decisions were made there. I have other points, but we'll let Brandon chime in at this point. We'll see what he's thinking about this stuff.
No, I want to say, because I'm celebrating. You see Luffy here? Just
Yeah, he's wanted dead or alive.
I'm celebrating because I called the structure of the show. I've been saying we got a season 2 Ellie, we got a season 3 Abby, we got a season 4 to wrap up the story. And it looks like that's the goal. I'm excited that I was right.
Okay, so it does, and you're right. But then you guys need to help me piece together what season 3 is going to look like. Because here's the thing. Ellie's 3 days in Seattle took 3 days. So it took 3 episodes. I'm sorry. Ellie's 3 days in Seattle took 3 episodes.
Yeah.
So I think you have to assume that Abby's 3 days in Seattle will take 3 episodes. You could expand it, but then I think you're sort of making the story unbalanced at that point. I feel like if it's 3 days for Ellie, it needs to be 3 days for Abby. We could potentially have an Abby flashback episode. Doesn't have to be the same as what we see in the game since we have a lot of that information. But we could get an episode with her and her dad and sort of informing her character and making her like us. That's 4 episodes. I think Ellie and Dina and the farm probably happens in season 3, just to get into structure a little. We've talked about on the show before how the game is broken up like prologue, act 1, act 2, act 3. So now in a spoiler special, we can say the prologue is up till Joel dying. Act 1 is Ellie's 3 days in Seattle. Act 2 is Abby's 3 days in Seattle. There's sort of an intermission, you know, it's a huge story beats, but on the farm. And then act 3 is basically everything that happens after, leading to a final confrontation.
Let's not talk about the location, but it's a different location.
Right. 3 days Abby in Seattle. That's 3 episodes. 1 Abby flashback. That's an episode. Maybe a Seraphite focused episode that's removed from those 3 days, that's potentially 5 episodes. If we put Farmhouse, which you may or may not agree with, that's 6. I don't see how we get that season over 6 episodes.
So I have an idea. So episode 1 of season 3 is your Abby Seattle Day 1. And you end Seattle Day 1. Because if you think about it, if you really take the story, I think it's going to be more like what happened with Seattle Day 2, which is we got Seattle Day 2 in the span of 1 episode and a half. Because in season 3, episode 1, you can start it with everything that occurs during the day with Abby, and you end it with whatever happens to her when she encounters the Seraphites, and then how she ends up with those characters that come from that encounter. You can do that in just 2 episodes because if you figure out when you think about it, even in gameplay wise, Abby's 3 days are a lot longer because they're almost 24 hours complete days as opposed to just mission orientated 3 days.
Yeah.
Like Ellie's. And you could make it so you isolate the big events to specific episodes, and one day boils down into the other.
You're right. So Abby's 3 days are bigger, as you alluded to, and quite frankly, they're better. It's the more interesting part of that game for me.
Yeah.
So we could expand that to more than 3 episodes. I just worry if it again throws the balance out of whack to what we saw this weekend. I guess I also should mention, and God, I hope we're putting massive spoiler episodes on this because I've already basically spoiled that Ellie and Dina are going to survive.
The ticker says spoilers for part 2. And
I've already spoiled that Ellie and Dina are going to survive the theater shootout, which they are. And I guess I should mention the theater shootout because I think that is also going to be a part. I think we're also going to see the resolution of what the theater showdown in season 3, but that's not a full episode. I mean, that's 10 minutes.
Fair. You could say, I honestly see, well, here's the other side of it is, I honestly see, and because Craig Mazin also kind of talked about this, I honestly see season 3 ending with the theater.
Yeah, it could.
Because I personally think that the farm and the final location is season 4 territory.
So you think farm definitely goes to...
Yes, that's where the story starts. I think so.
I will tell this though, if you're thinking about in terms of a cliffhanger and what's most likely to get people figuring out what comes next, I don't think it's the theater. I think it's the farm.
We get them, we see them there, but I don't think we get the entirety of the conversations and the stories that happen there. You mean in the sense of teasing the next step in Ellie's story?
Yes, if you want to end on, again, oh my God, spoilers galore. It feels weird, guys, because we've been so careful about protecting spoilers through 7 episodes, so it feels weird to go nuts now.
Do you think the Tommy and Ellie conversation occurs at the end of season 3?
I think the best way to get people to watch season 4 is to see Ellie leave at the end of season 3. But the thing is, you don't have a ton of story left at that point. How many episodes do you? I mean, the Rattlers and from then on is, if you're just adapting the game the way they've adapted things so far, it's like 2 episodes at most. Which is why it's hard for me to figure out what the structure of season 3 and season 4 is going to be. Well, if you're keeping these both at 7 episodes, and I don't think there's any way they can both be 7 episodes.
Well, but I have another thing on that that's going to fill the blanks, I think, in the way you're thinking. But go, Mike, before I say my part.
No, if it ties into what Robert's saying, just continue the thought.
So, thank you. But it's that Craig Mazin and Neil have done a phenomenal job at expanding this world, and because Abby's world is rooted in Seattle and everything happening in Seattle, I definitely see us getting a WLF centric episode in season 3. And I can see us having a Seraphite centered episode in season 3 as well.
I would bet good money we get a Seraphite focused episode.
Yes.
That breaks down What do they call their chosen one leader?
Prophet.
The
The
prophet. Like we're
because
probably gonna get a whole prophet origin, like the
right.
whole thing.
So
Yeah.
so if you think about it, if we get WLF center episodes, we get more of Isaac, more of Hanrahan, more of the WLF and how they became militarized, how they met the Seraphites and all that stuff. If we get more juicy moments like that, that's 2 episodes that we can fill in and connect to, and that could be kind of flashback footage that informs everything that Abby's going through throughout those 3 days, similar to what happened with Ellie.
I'm not sure that's 2 full episodes. I won't be surprised if we get some of that stuff. I'm not sure that's 2 full episodes. And I think we are going to get an Abby flashback episode, but I don't know if that's a full episode.
I think, because I know, Robert, one of your concerns was time and like having that equal time of the Seattle days, right? I also think it's worth understanding that Ellie's had a full season with Joel on top of The Last of Us Part 2, right? So like, I do think we are about to be headed towards a lot of like show original content for Abby. Like, that's part of why I think ending with Seattle Day 1 again in the finale may have been the wrong choice, because maybe we shouldn't start there for Abby. Maybe we should start with a flashback episode.
Well, they can still do that though.
They can, but again, now we're going out of order and being a little weird with it. That's all.
This show's done that before.
You mean again?
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that show does that all the time.
I mean, we can do but imagine we have a flashback episode with Abby and her dad, and then he's like, "We're going to the hospital," and then we relive that event from his perspective. That might be something interesting that they can.
I mean, that happens. That happens in the game.
75% chance that happens.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. But I don't think it happens in episode 1. I think
it's not. We're gonna pick up in Day 1 Seattle exactly how they are plotting it out.
I disagree with both of you. I think it might happen in episode 1. I think it's more likely we back up a little bit and then catch back up.
I like Robert's energy in this episode. He's just laying it down like, no, guys, this is how it's happening. Get Chris Mason on the phone, damn it.
If that's how it happens, that makes me question Seattle Day 1 even more at the end of 7. That's really where we are.
Here's the thing.
Mike,
here's the thing.
Okay, Robert, be careful. You're pushing Mike further into the deep end. Oh, wait, this way. You're pushing him further.
Man, I started in the deep end this entire season, so I'm just living here in the abyss.
Brandon correctly called the 4 seasons. I correctly called where this season was going to end, so we are now feeling very emboldened with our takes. I think that's what's happening here.
We're embracing the power. Now, I am going to ask something, and this is completely unrelated altogether. Did you guys catch the season 3 Easter egg in the finale?
Probably not, but without knowing what you're referencing, I don't know.
Yeah, like you ask us, but
it's a very specific. It's a very specific Easter egg.
Was it Abby at the stadium and it says Seattle Day 1? Because that was a pretty big.
I mean, no, not wrong.
I kid.
I ruined. No. Okay, so I think I ruined my whole thing. I don't belong in this. So listen. So think about this. Ellie and Jesse are walking through Seattle. The camera zooms out and you see 2 skyscrapers and a crane connecting them in the distance.
I did not see that.
Yep.
We better get the skyscraper across.
No, but and that's
incredible.
Yes, and that's one of those things that I was talking to Mike about. There is I respect waiting 2 years or a year and a half for the season, because this particular season 3, it will require a lot of post-production, because there's a lot of VFX heavy lifting happening.
This show is super expensive and takes a shit ton of work.
Yes, but this particular season is going to be, if we thought that the Horde in episode 2 was crazy, this season is going to blow it out of the water, because it has a lot to do, because it has that scene in between the buildings,
it also has Scar Island, which is going to be a nightmare shoot. I mean,
that's one.
Good luck.
It's going to have whatever is in B3, and it's going to have Scar Island. Like, And think, look, Robert's just like and that's what I mean. Like, there's no way that you have Seattle Day 2 and it not be 2 episodes. And the reason I say that is because in Seattle Day 2, that right there is 2 episodes. Because Seattle Day 2, what happens? You have all the time you spend with 2 other characters. Something happens to one of those 2 characters, and to save the life of one of those 2 characters, we have to do a lot of things.
You don't have to censor yourself. The characters can have names, buddy.
Okay. I'm not gonna say who they are. I'm not gonna say who they belong to. I'm gonna say Yara and Lev. Right? Lev. Yara and Lev. So Yara gets hurt, and that stops the entire journey. And that is definitely the way an episode ends, in the middle of Day 2. And the other side of Day 2 is Skycreeper, Scars, and B3. That's 2 episodes for Day 2. Period. That's the way.
You make compelling points. I just thought that Ellie's 3 days would have also have taken more than 3 episodes, and then they did not.
Fair, but we had flashbacks to fill the juices.
Also,
why keep doing this? I don't know. I'm sorry.
I just like when you lean in when you're talking about what's in B3. You like get really close to the yeah.
I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited. Not even rats are there.
Oh gosh. The thing is with these heavy VFX and like action sequences, we also need to remember these are like 30-minute fights in the game, but they might only be like 10-minute scenes in the show. So that's also something to count when we're saying it's going to take 2 episodes. Well, they might be able to squeeze that in 1 because that fight's going to only be like 5 minutes long, right? So that's something to think about.
I'm excited that we're finally going to see someone in the gas mask, because we haven't seen a person in a gas mask in the entirety of 2 seasons.
I'm excited for a full season of Caitlin Dever because, frankly, her and Isabella Merced have been the best actresses in this entire show.
In that final scene in the last episode of season 2, Dever is incredible, and I'm really looking forward to see.
Let you live. You wasted it.
My daughter, who watches with me, who's played the game, she's 15, so what the hell does she know? But she's young enough. She's very much like, well, she doesn't look like video game Abby. Like Abby's, it's that internet argument of Abby is supposed to be bigger and stronger and more threatening, and that it bothers some chodes on the internet and it bothers my daughter, and it doesn't bother me, and it's because I know how good of an actress Caitlin Dever is, and I know how good she was this year, and I just can't wait for them to fully unleash her in season 3. And I think she's gonna shut everybody up, including my daughter and everyone on Reddit. So
the reason why, like, outside of just some weirdos on the internet being weirdos on the internet, the reason why I still like at least acknowledge the argument, like, imagine if Superman was skinny.
Yeah.
And it's like, Superman doesn't need to be shredded. His powers come from super strength, but visually you still want him to look a certain way. Like, I get that in a fandom.
I should make this clear. I don't think it's an illegitimate argument. I do think it's a legitimate argument. I just think Caitlin Dever is going to render it moot by the end of next season. That's what I believe. To use one of Brandon's words, that's what I hope. But I think it'll happen.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've always talked about, and I think a perfect example is Robert Pattinson as Batman. A lot of people question the fact that he wasn't really excessively bulking up for the role. But like most actors that have played Batman successfully, it's the Batman effect. Once they're in the suit and they're in a room, holy shit, it's Batman. You know what I mean? Like, and Caitlin Dever is bringing that out. Every time she's on the screen, you cannot deny that she was born to play Abby.
Here's the other thing. There is harder casting they have to do, which is Lev, which is a bit of a minefield, and they're going to have to nail that.
Yep.
Because I love Lev, and everyone who plays the game loves Lev. And it seems like everything that happens on the show comes with, a whole host of internet talk and conjecture and arguing behind it.
Yep.
Lev, like everything else, is going to come with that. And
Yep.
I just hope they nail the casting. It's going to be incredibly tricky.
Yep. I do also want to say that with maybe that's the reason they're taking 2 years. He's going to bulk up. No, I'm kidding. But
I
but
mean, again, Robert Pattinson did bulk up a little bit for that.
a little bit.
Just
But I am excited for one thing that's that's a defining idea, and I think it goes back to the argument that you were making, Mike, about Ellie's competency. Is that I'm excited to see how, because everybody talks about how Abby and Ellie are more or less the same person, but the big difference between Ellie and Abby is how competent Abby is. And that is something that's woven into the character. That this is someone that has trained herself to be able to do things in a way that she's very successful in what she's doing. So I'm really excited for action star Abby.
can I get on my soapbox for a second here?
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
and rant, please. So every time I mention Ellie's competency, it's very frustrating because, yeah, I'm talking about we can have her in situations where she can appear more competent, but it's also the cast consistently like little sistering her a little bit. Like her entire interaction with Jesse in the finale. I didn't talk about it because we had to get moving for time purposes, but like in the game, and this is the only time I'm going to say this on this episode, in the game, her relationship with Jesse is very different, where they are actual friends and they get along with each other. And it's one thing that Craig Mazin has said several times throughout the course of this season is Ellie needs to learn things from Dina, or Jesse is almost taking on the Joel-like role in this episode. And it's like, we don't need to stop doing that. We need Ellie, like,
Fair.
It's one thing for her to have that relationship with Joel or with Tommy, right? And her being bad at this mission that she's going on, but her friends shouldn't be better at this than her, and they should see her as an equal. They shouldn't be filling that parent-like role in Ellie's life. Like, Dina shouldn't be her mom in some of these situations, and Jesse shouldn't be Joel or her dad in certain situations. And that's something that I hope we rectify going forward, because that's really right. That's really the problem with Ellie's character, and I hope we fix that, because we know she's apparently going to be in season 3. I hope we fix that, because that's aiding the issue of her feeling incompetent, because her friends treat her like she's incompetent.
I mean, one, you're entirely right about all this. I mean, it's a fair point, and I agree with pretty much all of it. I don't think it's getting fixed in season 3. Do I think Ellie will show up in season 3? Yes. Do I think it's going to be any more than the theater showdown? Not really.
No. Yeah.
Unless they take my advice and get us to the farmhouse at the end of the season.
But this is really why I'm voicing the concern, because now I can say we spent basically Ellie's entire part of the story doing that, and we can't really fix it.
I'm more interested in Abby's arc, and it's a spoiler special, but without going too nuts, I mean, she's going to start off as a soldier, as someone who takes orders and takes her duty seriously and takes this war they're in seriously. And then her allegiances and what she's devoting herself to change pretty drastically over the course of the 3 days. And I've probably said this on the show that I think my 2 favorite characters in video game history are Ellie and Abby. And if I have to pick one, it might be Abby. And I just can't wait to see Caitlin Dever go through that evolution for that character.
Yes.
That's why the dichotomy between the 2 characters is the entire layout has now changed, though, right? Because everything that we've learned thus far in the show about Abby and Ellie, I feel like almost contradict the point of the game a little bit, where it's like, yeah, we made Ellie just to be this immature brat who's getting in over her head, and Abby is that soldier who comes in, does her mission, and wants revenge for her dad. And that's how it's been spelled out in the show. Yeah. And so the impact, we've talked about this before, the impact of what this game was trying to say and trying to tell, even though I don't think it worked initially in the first place, I think it's going to be even harder for it to convey that in the show's format. And those are my concerns going into season 3, because you might walk away just like, Abby's the good guy. She's the main character of the story. And I think you're supposed to question that. You're supposed to go back and forth. And I think it's just going to be cut and dry. Abby's right, Ellie's wrong, by how we've been developing these 2 characters so far.
I think that's a legit concern. I'm going to spell out all my concerns. I think that's a concern. I think the wait is a concern, potentially up to 2 years between this season and season 3, potentially up to 3 years between season 3 and season 4. When all this stuff works in the game, because like Mike said, if you really go nuts, you can finish it in a long holiday weekend. And even if you don't go nuts,
I did that. I took time off work just to play it, and I finished it in a weekend.
So this stuff works.
I make bad decisions.
When you can experience the whole story in that amount of time, it really hits home. Yes. When we're breaking it up and stretching it over years, I don't know if this story works nearly that well. And then again, I've kind of alluded to this already. We've spoken about it a little bit, but I can't quite wrap my head around an even distribution of the rest of the story, because we think we know what will probably be in season 3. But then in my mind, even if we push Farmhouse to season 4, that doesn't leave enough story for a full season 4. Is season 4 going to be 4 episodes? I mean,
I was just about to suggest that like season 4 could just be like the Stranger Things effect of like 4 episodes that season and be done.
I'm okay if it's like that. I'm okay if it's like that.
Like a 4 episode event. It's 1 month, boom, in and out,
Yeah, I mean, it could literally be a Farmhouse episode and then a 2-hour Last of Us movie, and that's the end. I mean,
that's fine.
Yeah. But right now they're calling it a season, and it's like we were all so curious to see what the structure of season 2 was going to be and where it was going to end and how they were going to lay it out. Well, we have a lot of those questions. I mean, we now know what the structure is. We know they're following the game as far as the perspectives shift, but I'm still super interested to seeing what makes season 3, where the end point is, what they save for this 4th season that they're talking about. And because I can't quite wrap my head around an obvious way to do it based on 6, 7, 8 episode seasons. Maybe they do something like what we're talking about right now. I don't know.
Yeah. I think like anything, these awesome episodes that we do now, it's just speculation. But I'm gonna say I agree with you, Mike. I think that based on how everything's being presented so far with Abby, they're making it less of a gray conversation and more of a black and white conversation, which does lessen a lot of the message that the game is known for. So I do agree with. Go ahead.
I just think it's unfortunate because I don't know if you guys, we didn't use this in the news segment of last episode, but Neil Druckmann came out and said he basically like confirmed they were going to make a cure. They were going to be successful if Joel didn't make that decision that he made. And I just don't like that a lot of the ambiguity and, like the morally gray decisions of these characters. Right. I don't like getting the answers. Like that's part of what that's what made The Last of Us game such an interesting cliffhanger and almost why a bunch of people didn't want a sequel, because we wanted to have that mystery. And then The Last of Us 2 went out of its way to make sure they never answered that. And so answering all of these questions and like giving us definitive like positions on these things takes a lot of the intrigue out of the series. And I think the series needed that.
So it's funny you say that, because I agree and disagree with that. Because we know this, because we care about what Neil thinks about things, and we'll look for and find what Neil says about things. You know what I mean? But if you don't look for those things, the show just presents the possibility, right? Because the show does do a good job of posing the fact that what the weight of it all is not that there could have been a cure. The weight of it all is that the decision was taken away from Ellie. Right, that's really the weight of the argument of the story that story's trying to make.
Not necessarily, because if there was a cure, that now means Joel effectively doomed humanity, and that informs how you think of Joel the character, not even including Ellie in the conversation.
I might be remembering this wrong, but I guess we can argue about how much Joel knows. But in the porch scene, doesn't Ellie in the show ask him if it would have worked, and he says yes? Doesn't that happen?
No, they could have made a cure. He says yes.
Yeah.
But but still the weight of the conversation is on how Ellie is feeling with those truths and what he took away.
In general, I agree with Mike that leaving some things up to the viewer or player and keeping things somewhat unanswered is better from a story perspective.
Agreed.
I will
agree,
say
Fred.
this story, I think thematically is better if you're assuming in your head that the cure would have worked. So, Druckmann spelling that out in an interview doesn't really kill things.
But that's what I mean.
It's not that he necessarily spelled it out. It's that I can tell that's been their approach the entirety of season 2. Because they're going out of their way of spelling specific things out. And it's like, it feels like they're spoon feeding this to us. Whereas the games respected the player to understand the source material, where now we're going out of our way to deliver it in a specific type of way. And I just think it's kind of undermining the point of the Last of Us Part 2 specifically. Like The Last of Us 1 is a very straightforward story.
I wonder, part of me wonders what it would have been like to not have played the game and just watch the show as a TV viewer. I'm curious what would have been. You know how people put memes out there that, oh, you forgot everything, now you have to, and then, oh, I get to watch Peak again.
Well, luckily, there are people reacting to this show, and I've been seeing their perspectives, and it's very much how people who played the game reacted. I just find that funny, because in our episode 0, Robert went on of like, we're going to have to live through the discourse again. And we're seeing the discourse again in just a different lens, but it's being interpreted very differently because there's going to be that 2-year wait. So I want to see what part 3 looks like, Yeah.
It's just nothing's ever, I shouldn't say ever, but things aren't done like this on TV, where we're going to have potentially a full season with a completely different lead character, a completely new supporting cast that, as far as we know, hasn't even been cast yet. Well, not completely new. Mel and Owen and some of these people are going to be back, but we are going to have new major characters. Yeah. And it could be, it's not going to be 100% of the season. It could be 95% of the season. And it's just going to be interesting to see how folks react to that.
Yeah. That's what I was saying at the top of the show of like, we kind of did that. That's just the identity of this show now of you have a main character, then they get replaced with another character, and now we have a new supporting cast because Dina and Jesse, these were new characters too, going into this season. I want to know how that clicks with people.
My final thought is I didn't love this season 2 as much as I loved season 1. I still really liked season 2. I'm still charged by the ending. I'm still very much in on season 3 and where we go and how this works and seeing Caitlin cook.
I think if with the amount of dedication and legitimacy to the character in the story, I think season 3 might be the highest point. It has the potential to be the highest point of the series, to a degree. I hope it achieves it. Hope. But yeah, I mean, everything you said, Mike, everything you said, Robert, especially the concerns, they're all legitimate. And I think it all talks to the idea of how a medium can transform a story. And I really do hope that in the future I'll be able to see this nonstop and be able to appreciate the decisions made. Because it would have been interesting if we had to wait 5 years for him to do the whole thing and then watch it all. But I do like the fact that we're still getting it. So I'm very excited for season 3. Very excited.
We spoiled lots of stuff, but we didn't spoil everything.
We didn't talk about B3. I'm putting that out there. You don't know what's on B3.
We don't talk about B3, guys.
On B1, everything was fine. On B2, you start coughing. We don't know what's in B3.
The B3 episode in 2 years is going to be amazing.
I'm telling you,
I'm not talking about the show. I'm talking about this show. I'm talking about our show is going to be amazing.
Oh my god. And I know.
I just hope we remember this bit in 3 years. That's really the thing.
You think, Mike? You've known me. Am I going to forget this?
It's a potential out of 10. I don't know.
I hate everything.
That's a callback.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the fact that I'm pretty confident that episode is going to be cold. B3. Like, I'm excited. So, guys, we've done the thing. Sorry, not sorry for people that did not play the game and heard to us rant about the show. But I like the idea of no matter how much we disagree or agree, and the up and downs with the show, I love that The Last of Us is kind of carving its own path within all of television to be its own unique experience, just like the game was. So I do have to give it props for that. And I think that's it, guys. I think we close the season 2 curtain until B3 is opened in a season 3. There's gonna be a season 3 intro. It's gonna be exciting. But no, I'm excited, guys. If you like what we do here on the Shadow After, and you love Beyond the Clickers, and if you want to see me figure out capturing the game and streaming it just for fun, let me know. Make sure you click on that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, share with your friends, click on the bell for notifications so you don't miss anything from Beyond the Clickers, from the Shatter After Unlimited, the Shatter After, Insider Shatter, and them doing a tier list on all MCU movies.
Nope,
Please
never
don't
gonna happen.
Please don't ask for it. Don't do it.
No, because you know what? Thanks to the multiverse that now includes all of the X-Men movies and Blade and every version of Fantastic Four, we're not doing that. We're not doing 100 Marvel movies.
Fantastic Four.
I've never seen Blade 3, so I can't take part. But make Mike do it.
Make Mike do everything.
That's my role here.
6 seasons in a movie. Robert, where can people find you, bro?
I got my website right here. It's RBT Rights. That's me, Robert Brian Taylor. All my social media links are contained therein. I'm also on Letterboxd at RB Taylor if you really want to find me where I mostly hang out.
Mike, where can people find you? Do you exist in the webs?
I exist in the multiverse, multiple variants. You can find me at Novice Cinephile everywhere. I just have to say, it's been a blast chatting with you guys for this season. You know, this has been awesome. I have to say this now because we're not going to do this for like another 2 years potentially, unless we do that live stream playing the game on Twitch. We'll see. But it's been a blast. You guys can see me here on Chat After, always talking. Writing's going up at collider.com and stuff. Mostly on TikTok now, though, so you can check me out there.
I should just briefly jump in and say yes, thank you for having me. It's been some months back now when Mike discovered how big of a Last of Us fan I was. And he's like, oh, you should jump on our podcast, especially when the new season starts. So thank you to both of you for having me, because it has been a lot of fun.
Robert, we appreciate you joining our fucking community. It had to happen that way. And you can find me at Monkey D. Braffy on Blue Sky Social, here on the Shadow After and the Amateur Otaku. Thank you for spending these 9 episodes with us. 2 pre and post shows in the entire season 2. Thank you for your support during season 1 of Beyond the Clickers. And I'm serious. If you want to watch me play The Last of Us again, because it's not a chore, if you want me to do this, I don't know, we'll find time. But I'm excited for the future comes. I hope that The Last of Us does keep showing us that there's a right way to bring these type of stories to life. Personally, I would love HBO to work with Druckmann on an Uncharted show, because I think it would be amazing. God of War is getting a show.
Tom Holland's finally old enough to reprise his role, Brandon. Hope you're ready.
Yep. Netflix finally canceled The Witcher. I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the adaptation world. But I hope that people learn the right things about The Last of Us, just like they want them to learn the right things from Castlevania. So see you guys. Till season 3, endure and survive. I remember this time. See you later, guys. Peace.
Later, Gators.